Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at EX2, and even though EX2 is a smaller set compared to your usual set, it still has lots of powerful cards to build some new and exciting decks with. And the new exciting deck that's going to be introduced in EX2 is going to be the D-Reaper deck. So the D-Reaper deck is the first time Digimon actually has a self-inclusive deck inside of a set, so if you're only buying this set, you should still be able to make a D-Reaper deck, which is really cool, especially since this is going to be a super budget-friendly deck, considering everything that you need from the D-Reaper side is going to be rare and below. So it's going to be a very affordable and very accessible deck outside of your searchers, but I'll get into that in just a moment. But essentially what the D-Reaper deck is trying to do is it's kind of a combo deck where you're going to utilize your Mother D-Reaper to sit on the field passively to try to make your cards more powerful and more efficient, and then buy your time till you can make it and line up a very powerful Reaper turn to be able to hit the opponent as hard as you possibly can, hopefully ending the game with your Reaper. So with all that said and done, onto the actual deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm only going to be running 4 copies of Mother D-Reaper because, well, that's the only Digitama that we need. We're not expecting her to die very often, if at all, so you really could get away with 1, but there's no harm in running more just in case. But what this card is trying to do is it is a Digitama with 15,000 DP, so that means as a Digitama, you can move it out into the raising area because it has DP to exist. Then it has a nice ability where during all turns, this Digimon can't attack, but it isn't affected by the opponent's card effects, so they can't just Gaia Force it away. So the only real ways that the opponent is going to have to try to deal with your Mother D-Reaper is if it's caught in a suspended state, then they could attack into it, or they have to use cards that allow them to attack into unsuspended Digimon, and then they're going to have to clear that 15,000 DP threshold at least in order to be able to delete Mother D-Reaper. So there's not a whole lot of ways a lot of decks can actually interact with this card, making her super powerful because she has 2 really solid abilities outside of that we're trying to take advantage of. So her main ability states that once per turn, if you don't have another Mother D-Reaper in play, which ideally you shouldn't because you should have 1 in the raising and then 1 on the field, you get to place 1 of your EX02 searchers from either in play or your hand underneath this Digimon to the bottom of its Digivolution source. So this is just one of the ways that it's allowing you to accelerate your game plan to just try to get searchers underneath your Mother D-Reaper for your searchers abilities, which I'll get into in just a moment. Then her secondary ability is during your turn, once per turn, when you would play a card with D-Reaper in its traits from your hand, you get to reduce the play cost by 1 for each of this Digimon's Digivolution sources. So she's just trying to help make your cards as efficient to play as you possibly can, especially since, because, well, this is a completely different style of deck, you're going to have to hard play everything. That's kind of the great equalizing ability to just make it a little bit more cheaper and efficient to be able to play your cards. Next, I'm going to be running 16 copies of EX02 Searcher. So Searcher is a really interesting card because we could have any number of copies of this card in our deck, up to 50, which Digimon decks are only up to 50 anyway. So we could run a whole bunch of Searchers, which we want just because we want to shove it underneath our Mother D-Reaper to try to accelerate our game plan. And if we want, we could also use this card as a nice engine tool, just because it has a nice on-play ability where we get to draw 1 card, and it has a nice ability to help make this card even easier to play, where you get to play this card from your hand and reduce its play cost by 2 if we don't have another searcher in play. So it's just a very cheap and efficient card to play, shove underneath our Mother D-Reaper, then play another one to draw some extra cards and start our engine going. Unfortunately, this card won't be able to attack players. It can still attack Digimon, but it's the primary card you want to shove under your Mother D-Reaper because it has an inheritable ability for her, where during your turn, all of your Digimon with D-Reapers in their traits get plus 1,000 DP to make all of your other D-Reapers a little bit stronger. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of EX03 Pendulum Feats. So Pendulum Feats is going to act as the dedicated digger for the deck, where he has an on-play ability where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, add 1 card with D-Reaper in its traits and 1 searcher from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So it's just a good consistency tool for the deck to use. And once it's used up, then we could start utilizing this card to try to chip at the opponent. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of ADR04 Bubbles. So Bubbles is going to be a security Digimon, so it's actually acting as a security threat where we get to place one of our ADR02 searchers from in play or from our hand underneath our Mother D Reaper to the bottom of its Digivolution sources. So its security ability is just trying to accelerate our Mother D Reaper's inheritable sources, which is always pretty good. Then its on-play ability allows us to place one of our ADR02 searchers from in play or from our hand underneath our Mother D Reaper to the bottom of its Digivolution sources. So it's just, again, trying to accelerate our game plan with putting our searchers underneath our Mother D Reaper. And speaking of accelerating our Mother D Reaper and shoving our searchers underneath, next I'm going to be running 4 copies of ADR01 Jeri. So Jeri is a card that's pretty interesting because her main ability states that we get to suspend this Digimon to reveal the top 5 cards of our deck. We get to place one ADR02 searcher from among them underneath one of our Mother D Reapers to the bottom of its Digivolution source, then the rest go to the bottom. So she, again, is just literally trying to accelerate our game plan with trying to place our searchers from our deck underneath our Mother D Reaper this time instead of our hand or field. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of ADR05 Creepy Hands. So Creepy Hands is going to be acting as the deck's dedicated blocker, where during the opponent's turn, while you have a Mother D Reaper in play, this Digimon gains blocker. So it's just your stereotypical blocker to try to stop some of the aggression that the opponent could have. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of ADR07 Palates Head. So Palates Head is going to act as the primary control tool for the deck in terms of actually trying to delete the opponent's Digimon outside of just attacking into them. So what this card is doing is it has the main ability where if we have a Mother D Reaper in play, then we could suspend this Digimon to delete one of the opponent's Digimon whose DP is equal to or less than this Digimon's DP. So just by him alone, we're already going to be able to delete basically the opponent's rookies, and then as the game goes on and we have more sources underneath our Mother D Reapers, then its DP during our turn is going to be a lot greater to be able to increase the reach of what this card's able to delete. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of ADR09 Gatekeeper. So Gatekeeper is an absolutely insane card just because of how strong this card is at just trying to stall and control the opponent's field. So it does have a security ability where we get to place this card into the battle area for free. So it's just a very strong card just because it's a 10k body already that the opponent is going to have to deal with. Then it has an on-play ability where if we have a Mother D Reaper in play, then we get to recover 1. So it's just a really solid card at just generically helping us recover as well as being able to play itself up for free out of our security. And then its last ability really is what drives this card home as one of the best cards in the entire deck, where during your opponent's turn, while you have a Mother D Reaper with 6 or more Digivolution sources in it in play, then all of the opponent's Digimon gains security tech -1. So this is a fog effect, so it does affect all Digimon in all areas, even new Digimon that are going to be coming onto the field, and it's not just a one and done debuff. So this is what's going to help you stall out the game even longer, as long as you're able to accelerate your Mother D Reaper, which a lot of the cards in the deck are designed to help do that. And then the last Digimon of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Reaper. So Reaper is going to be the win condition for the deck just because we're trying to take advantage of our Mother D Reaper having lots of inheritable sources to be able to play this card for free. So what's allowing us to do that is when we would play this Digimon, we could trash 7 or more Digivolution sources from the bottom of one of our Mother D Reapers to set this Digimon's play cost at 0, letting us play him for free. Then he has the rush ability, so we could attack the turn that he comes into play. Then he has the nice when attacking ability, where we get to place 2 ADR02 searchers from our trash underneath this Digimon in any order at the bottom of its Digivolution source to be able to unsuspend this Digimon. So that way it's allowing us to be able to multi-swing with this card because we just put a whole bunch of them in our trash because that's what we built up for. So the idea is we're going to build up our Mother D Reaper to be able to play Reaper for free, and then all of those sources that we got rid of from under Mother D Reaper is going to go under Reaper slowly to multi-attack to try to, again, close out the game. So we're going to utilize a lot of our low-end cards to try try to chip the opponent out, like our Bubbles and our Palladium feats, to be able to then go into a Reaper and close out the game with Reaper's multi-attacking potential. And then lastly, onto our off-color cards, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Final Zubagon Punch. So I am going with a black base just because I think generically a black base is pretty solid. There's a whole bunch of other colors that you could splash into the deck depending on what you want to try to gain out of the deck and how you want to play it. But I do think Final Zubagon Punch is a really fantastic card because it combos with our Mother D Reaper and it combos with our Reaper as well. So what this card is doing is we get to give one of our Digimon plus 3000 DP until the end of the opponent's next turn. Then if that Digimon has 16,000 or more DP, then it gains the blocker ability, the reboot ability, and the security attack +1 ability until the end of the opponent's next turn. So if we use this with our Mother D Reaper, then, well, we can make Mother D Reaper an 18k blocker, or if we're trying to utilize this with Reaper, then it's just an easier card to try to end the game with, just because Reaper is already going to be able to multi-attack, he's already at 15k, so just using this turns all of the buffs online, making for a very well-rounded card with how our deck wants to play. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Ultimate Flare. So this is a flex spot for the deck. It doesn't necessarily have to be Ultimate Flare. I just like some form of removal and big security threat to really make the opponent wary of trying to attack our security or dealing with threats we might not be able to deal with otherwise. So what Ultimate Flare is doing is it's de-digivolving 3 on one of the opponent's Digimon and then deleting any Digimon in play that has a play cost of 3 or less, with the security ability of activating its main effect, acting as the primary control option. And then the last card that I'm going to be splashing in to be able to play these black option cards is going to be 3 copies of Izzy. So this is going to be the deck's dedicated memory fixing tamer, so if our memory is ever less than 3, he'll just always hard set us to 3, which is pretty good because it allows us to play a lot of our low-end cards a little bit easier. Then he also has a nice on-play ability that helps us rig the top cards of our deck, where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck. If all of the cards revealed are black, which none of them will be, then we get to gain a memory, which we won't be doing, but we get to place them back on top in any order. So we could try to combo this with our Palladium feat, Jeri, or Searchers to be able to draw into what we need off the top of our deck. And then there are just some other cards that we could think about utilizing in the deck, again, depending on the type of support package that you're wanting to give the deck and the types of cards that you want to use. So we do have some other D-Reapers that we could think about utilizing. So we do have ADR06 Horn Striker for some extra damage just because he could gain the rush ability, and Mother D-Reaper can help us play him potentially for free or for a really cheap amount. And then to try to help play our other D-Reapers, that we do have a Optimizer as a good card to just try to help get them out, but it is more of a late game card, and by then we should be thinking about playing our Reaper rather than a card like Optimizer. But it's still a good card to include if you don't really have anything better to do, or just as a good tech card. Then, because we are already playing with white Digimon, we could run white option cards even easier than most other decks, so we could efficiently slide in something like a Program Emergency Halt to try to stop the opponent from utilizing their options. And then we could utilize some white tamers to just help try to control the opponent's field in various different ways. So if we wanted to, we could try to utilize the Digimon Emperor to help us draw some cards and gain some memory and punish the opponent for having their Digimon get deleted or moving their low-level Digimon out of the raising area as an example of this. Then if you want to go a little bit deeper or swap out some different black cards, we do have Iron Fisted Onslaught as a really good black card removal card, on top of the fact that we do have Breath of the Gods to try to act as some solid protection, not only just from our security to stop the opponent's attacks, but to make it so that our Digimon are going to be a little bit harder to be interacting with. And then we do have Izzy and Joe as another duo tamer for black to use, just to help with some extra memory gain, even though we're not going to be able to get the card draw off of it. But if you wanted to splash in a little bit of red, red has some pretty unique and good tools for us to think about utilizing. So we do have Taikamiya as a really good tamer just to help increase the DP of our Digimon to make them a little bit more aggressive. And then that allows us to utilize red options, so we have some solid red boosting options to try to make our Digimon stronger or safer to swing with. And red just has some of the best removal options in the game as well, so we could lean a little bit into red for its control aspects. And then the other most popular color you're going to be seeing a lot of is going to be yellow, just because yellow is one of the best control colors in the game, and we could really take advantage of our security with yellow. So we could run cards like Tactical Retreat to shove cards in our security to try to trigger their security abilities again. So that could set up our bubbles and set up our gatekeepers again and again, on top of the fact that its security ability just helps us recover to keep us alive. Then we do have cards like Spiral Masquerade and Wyvern's Breath to act as some primo control and removal tools, just because we could amass a wide board relatively quickly, and we're always going to have a Digimon out thanks to Mother D-Reaper just sitting on the field. And then, like I said before, we do have Wyvern's Breath as just the yellow version of Gaia Force, just for some more removal, and we even have Eden's Javelin if we do want to try to draw some cards and amass a nice healthy hand size and take advantage of that as well. Then we do have some more recovery-based options, so we could tech in a reinforced memory boost just to try to, again, help rig our security to shove our security Digimon in there, on top of it utilizing its delay ability to gain memory at a later turn. And we do have cards like Holy Wave to act as some generic recovery for the deck. Then, as far as yellow tamers go, we do have TK Inkari just to try to de-incentivize the opponent from attacking while gaining us some additional memory. On top of the fact that we also do have Kari to lean into the recovery aspect, which is generally how Yellow and D-Reapers kind of wants to play along with each other, to act as the memory fixing tamer for the deck to help us gain some additional memory when we're going to be recovering. But there's still just a whole bunch of other sub-packages that you could think about playing and leaning into. So you could play a little bit of purple, you could play a little bit of green, you could play a little bit of blue. It just all depends on what you want to pair up with D-Reapers to just best support what D-Reapers wants to try to do. All depending on what your build is actually going to try to do. But that just goes to show how flexible of a deck D-Reapers can be, all depending on the color you're trying to support it with and what you're actually trying to gain out of the deck outside of its initial game plan of build up Mother D-Reaper going into a Reaper into the mid to late stages of the game. But I think this is going to be a really solid core or shell for a lot of people to adapt and adopt, and people should iterate upon it to find what they like and enjoy out of what D-Reapers can do. And I think D-Reapers is going to be a really fun and really strong deck coming out of EX2. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.